Om Shri Sai Ram, offering my most humble and loving salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Dear brothers and sisters, it gives me great pleasure to bring to you another episode of Sai Ram Katha. I'm grateful to Bhagwan for this golden opportunity to share the divine story with all of you. Let us start this evening again with our prayer and we'll continue our discussion. And I request you all to please join me in. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai Ram, and welcome you all for this evening's offering about on Sri Ram Sai Ram Katha. So far we have seen the whole concept of what was the era before Ram, a concept of the Rama Rajya which he gave it to all of us, and how the whole divine play was prepared. Today we will venture to look at Ram Katha from the eyes of the place where this event, this beautiful journey of the Lord took place. Whenever we talk about, the places, today we look at Ayodhya or we look at Puttaparthi, we look at it as an spiritual place of importance because our avatar, our Lord, took form, took birth in those places. But today we are attempting to look at this story from their perspective. If Ayodhya needs to tell his story, if Puttaparthi needs to tell its story about the Lord, what it could be probably, what it takes for a place to become a birthplace of the Lord. I remember in a very casual discussion, Bhagwan had himself said that people ask, why do gods and avatars appear in India? We don't see this kind of flurry, this kind of crowd of gods appearing anywhere in the world. Why India? What is so special about this place? And Bhagavan very beautifully answered his own question. And he said, when a huge play has to take place, like a soap opera has to happen, you require a perfect stage for it, which has the good acoustic, good lighting, good sound, everything. And then only a performance can take place. For an avatar to descend, for avatar to come and do its play, it requires a perfect stage. And this land of Bharat has been sanctified and blessed by the penance of hundreds and thousands of rishis who have purified this beautiful land of Bharat and prepared it for the divine drama. Even the name itself, we have discussed it earlier, Bharat was given to it because of this very reason. Bha means Bhagavan, God, and Rat means love, interest, affection, attraction. So the land where people have love, adoration for God is Bharat. So wherever you are, when you have affection for the Lord, you live in that, you are in Bharat. So this land, this particular geographical area, which is under the shade of Himalaya, this Himalayan continent, Himalayan mountain range, has blessed us to focus on the supreme consciousness and thus prepare us for this beautiful journey of Avatar. So, from that perspective, this place is very sanctified. And then, in this place, a spot where an avatar must take birth. And now, if you look at it from that context, we all will realize how important and crucial that becomes. The choice which an avatar takes and says, here, I'm going to choose to descend on this land. So, what is this land? And we look at this from a clear perspective: significance of the name, history of this place little bit, and the significance of the place. Now if you notice, we have mentioned Ayodhya and Gollapalli. People who are used to Bhagwan will know what this Gollapalli means and why I have not written Puttaparthi. Gollapalli is the original name of the place which we know today as Prashanti Nilayam. So we're going to start our story from that part, and that is why I have put this correlation of Ayodhya and Gollapalli. And we look at it one by one as to what it entails and what it means from that place of birth of Lord to receive the avatar. So let us first look at Ayodhya. I'm I'm venturing into sharing few tidbits and few nuggets which has gives us at least a perspective into that place, which why it is called so much, why it was considered to be as such an important and a beautiful place for an avatar's choice. Ayodhya, historically speaking, we look at Ayodhya from two areas: a microcosm, which refers in the story of humans, and as a macrocosm, which is a geographical part of place. Ayodhya, as we know historically, was uh, a city of gods. I should say a capital city of gods. It was prepared, it was made as a central point from where the whole world was governed in those period of time. So it was a center of that country, if I may call Bharatvarsha in that era as a country. The capital city, this was created by gods. So it has that significance. And we'll also look at it as a story of humans, and this is where it becomes very interesting as to how to look at Ayodhya. Ayodhya was considered, it is it is a it was supposed to be a place which, the word, if you use the word Ayodhya, it has a connotation which is that nobody can conquer this place. Adhya Ayodhya Mahabaho Ayodhya Pratibhati Naha. There is no place which is as effulgent, as glorified as Ayodhya, and it's a place which cannot be fought against or which can never be conquered. It is that kind of a city created by gods which actually defines how glorified, how great this state was. Historically, they say it was 12 yojanas, by 9 yojanas. One yojana is around 8 miles, they say, but there are different versions. But Bhagwan has mentioned it is 12 yojanas into 9 yojanas. Interestingly, when I look at Parthi, what is the area of Puttaparthi? It is funnily around 40, 45 square kilometers. So, so you can look at it how everything is naturally placed in its position to make it very interesting. Now, when I look at Ayodhya, there are few things which we can look at it to understand the beauty of how it was constructed. They say Ayodhya was a city which has 8 layers. The fortification of Ayodhya was done in a manner that that's why it was unsurmountable. You could not win it because it had that layer of 8, and in the center was the main kingdom, or the palace. So it was formed like a chakra, the cycles. And the connotation which Bhagavan explains it, it's like the 8 chakras of the human body. Okay, from Mooladhara to Sahasrara. So how it is all connected, and once you cross them, then only you get realization. So Ayodhya was that impregnable city of gods with 8 chakras. This is the kind of explanation our scriptures provide for Ayodhya. And they say it was a city of gold. It was illuminated like that, ever illuminated in light, because it was a golden city. And in the center is called Brahmapura, where you have, I presume, there would be a central place where the palace would have been. It was called as Brahmapura. Brahmapura, in a literal sense, would mean a place where Brahman resides. It's the very strongest portion. And if you look at it, other version, the Brahmasthana, a center where the life force, the supreme consciousness resides in our body, that becomes Brahmasthana. Ayodhya has got many names. They explain Ayodhya from different varieties, how it was given names from in different eras. Now, when I this is, and I'm sure if you dig into the history of Ayodhya, you will find that it was ruled by kings who were unparalleled. It is a lineage. We look at that, how the lineage of Suryavanshi, the lineage of sun god, was a starting point of this, and how the great kings, Dashratha's forefathers, were amazing kings. Few of them we know very well, like Raja Harishchandra, we know Aja. So people are phenomenally like high in character. They rule this place. So this place has its own tradition, even to an extent that when King Raghu ruled this place, and for his word he lived for that, and that is where after that it started being called as Raghukula Reet. That is Raghukula, the Kula of Raghu. It was called Ikshwaku Vansh before, and it got an additional name of Raghu because of his character of king of Raghu, who whose under whose name we have this beautiful saying, Raghukul Reet Sada Chali Aayi, Prana Jai Par Vachan Na Jai. That is a tradition of King Raghu, that if I give my word, I will live by it, and even if it costs me my life, I would respect and live for my word. So that tradition, even Lord Ram follows. And you can imagine what kind of precedence Ram had in his physical advent. He was being governed by such luminaries. He had that much of people behind him. Now, Gollapalli, unfortunately, our brother Raju could not come. Uh, he had some emergency, and this poem, he will when he comes, I'll request him to repeat again. But let me share with you about little bit about Gollapalli. People who are, who know the history of Puttaparthi, they would know that Puttaparthi was originally called Gollapalli. Gollapalli is a Telugu word which means a land of milk. It was cows, land of cows. So it was very prosperous. It was supposed to be very prosperous. The name itself connotes the land of abundance. It was a land where there was plenty, people were happy, people were prosperous. And then slowly, due to some reason, you can call it curse, they say there is a story like somebody killed a snake by mistake and they got a curse and the land turned into an anthill and a lot of snakes started flourishing there, and that is why the name of Golapalli changed to Puttaparthi, the place of anthill. And that as you enter Prashanti Mandir also you will see there is a place under the tree where snakes and Navgrahas are worshipped. It is a sanctifying, it is giving respect to those snakes, because when Swami came he turned it into Prashanti Nilayam. So Puttaparthi was a name which happened to Golapalli because Golapalli lost its luster, its grandeur, and then turned into an anthill, Puttaparthi. So this is how the focus has moved. Now, as we'll discuss further about Golapalli, but let us look at this story about, when I talk about Ayodhya per se, and this was just a backdrop I was trying to give about the place, the significance of the place, and how, what should I say, what was the backdrop, what was the historical precedence which was attached to this place, and how great the place already was. Now, when I look at it in the context of Prabhu Ram, and I try to understand as to how this place has to tell its story, I look at it, I will divide this into three phases. And this is where I'm going to share this thought with all of you. That let us look at Ayodhya telling a story from three phases. One, before Ram. So up to Lord Master Dashrath, we look at Ayodhya. And then we look at Ram when he was in exile. So Ayodhya got Ram but lost it. And then comes the third when Ram returns and rules it. They say around 11,000 years or so Ram has ruled. But anyways, the point is with Ram. So there are three facets wherein we look at Ayodhya. Now before Ram, see, as we know that to receive the proximity of the Lord, there is a lot of penance which goes through. We say the parents were lucky that Lord was born, but how many of us hardly dwell into finding how much of penance, how much of purification their souls must have done to become a parent of the Lord. Similarly, there are millions of saints and seers who have worked hard to get a position in Avatar's life so they can enjoy the proximity of the Lord, even if it meant for a short beam. So here is Ayodhya, which was being ruled by kings who were blemish free, who had not an iota of mistake in them. They ruled literally like a representative of God. They followed Dharma to the T. They did everything possible in their human capacity to be just, loving, caring, and mightier, glorifying. And they prepared the stage for the Lord to descend. Imagine a saint, a king who does penance for so many, actually, three generations they do penance to bring the nectarine river Ganga to earth. So such place, such people have nurtured this land called Ayodhya. So Ayodhya was destined to receive Lord. So it had been praying and been prepared by so many people, and the land was full of glory, full of abundance before Ram could arrive. But it had a negativity, only one, and that we have also looked at. That how pride, that as Bhagwan would beautifully say, in spirituality, the pride of spirituality itself is the biggest threat. You know, in goodness, when we say I'm good, the problem in saying I'm good becomes that that itself becomes the biggest problem. That we can get into the pride of being good. And here was Ayodhya, which had everything perfect for the Lord, and unfortunately sneaked in the pride. And because of that pride, as we have seen, there were certain mistakes, and Ayodhya lost Ram. Even after receiving, Ayodhya lost it. And then, when the Lord left, what did Ayodhya do? It went into penance again. So, as Bhagavan says, if you want to remove the negativity, you have to pour positivity, and nothing can stop it. There is no other way except continuing your penance. And Ayodhya continued. For 14 years, as they say, there was no death, no birth in Ayodhya. Can you imagine the restraint which Ayodhya people must have shown? The amount of focused dedication, devotion the people of Ayodhya and the land of Ayodhya must have shown. Can you imagine that Ayodhya grew in abundance in those 14 years? They made kind of 100 times the growth which normally they would make without a formal king. The representative of the king Bharat was staying outside the jurisdiction of Ayodhya. He was living like a saint, an ascetic. And his representative Shatrughan, who was managing the affair, was also not sleeping there. He was also at the feet of and outside the door of Bharat. And it seems the whole city, whole state, as they say, Nagar, all the people of Ayodhya took up that simple lifestyle because they said, if my king, if our king can take that hardship, we should also. So when Ram was in exile, Ayodhya was also in exile. Ayodhya continued to pine for the Lord. Even though there was prosperity, or I should say, in spite of Lord physically not being with them, the pining made them have the Lord 24/7 in their breath, in their life. And because of that, from a materialistic worldly outlook, Ayodhya was still growing in abundance. So before Ram, there was abundance. Ram in exile, there was abundance. Yet the pining, that there is a dissatisfaction before Ram, there was a huge dissatisfaction when Ram in exile. But there was effort. When people ask this question and we all wonder that how can we put in the best effort and still remain detached? How can we give our best when we are not focused on the goal? We are not interested in the outcome of our effort. This question bothers today's management gurus and today's managers. Everybody. Everybody wants a goal, an output in view to put in an effort. I am working hard so that I can get good result. I am working hard so that I can make good profit. And here was Ram, here was Ayodhya showing us a perfect acknowledgement to the knowledge of Gita in live depiction, how a person, how we are supposed to conduct in our life, how we are supposed to perform with full power, with full attention, with full dedication, without an objective goal in front of us. So none of them were working to get prosperity, none of them were working to gain abundance, wealth, but they are working only in the pining, in the pain, in the memory of their Lord, and abundance happened. This is the secret which Ayodhya teaches us. When the focus is Ram, whatever you do will be the best. When the focus is Ram, abundance will come. When focus is Ram, then whatever efforts are put in will deliver the best results naturally and automatically. This is the huge lesson we can learn from Ayodhya. The whole condition of Ayodhya waiting for the advent to happen, because they were rishis. They knew at that time Ram, the Lord, is going to take birth here. So there was a preparation already going on. Many people were already aligning themselves to Ayodhya, so that one day when Avatar comes, they all can get this blessed opportunity to be around him, to enjoy his proximity. So there was a pining before Ram, there was a crying, a toss, there was a pining when Ram went for exile. But none of, in each of these times, nobody stopped or did any concession in efforts. Everybody's effort was of the highest order. Everybody worked hard. And that is the beauty of Ayodhya before Ram and Ram in exile. And when Ram returns, obviously there is an exuberance that is like an, you have reached, you have arrived. Our problem is when we arrive, we don't know what to do in arrival. Like Bhagwan would always joke with us, and I remember that he said, I'll give you a live story about it. It was my 12th class, I think. Yeah, we were all sitting in the portico for morning darshan, and it was only for our class, as we had holidays, study holidays, so to say. And we were, Bhagwan would come out early morning around 7:30. He would come out and give darshan, take people for interview. And bhajan used to be around 11 o'clock. But he would finish interview in an hour. There is an ample time for him to come and go. And he would take second round of interview, and in the middle he'll talk to us and go. So we would get 7 minutes with him in each brackets. And then sometimes he'll stand, and 15-20 minutes before bhajan he'll talk to us. So that was a beautiful interaction with Bhagwan. And there were times when, and it was expected also for us, that when Bhagwan would take people for interview, we were supposed to read. We have to study. So we would carry books with us. And there are times when Bhagwan would just sneak in so softly. He would literally glide. We won't even hear the door handle move, door open. He will come out. And sometimes he'll just come out so swiftly that he will be right in front of you, and you won't know even that he has come. So there are occasions when we are sitting and he was standing right in front of us suddenly, and you see the red reflection on the books, and you just look up, and then you see they're smiling Swami and teasingly looking at you and saying, "Hey Mira." And one day Bhagwan very mischievously was looking at us, and he said, "What is the use of studying? Why do you study so much?" And it was a question, as a young boy, we would always look for that. Okay, Swami should say, "Stop studying," and we would be happy to do that. But Swami said, "Why do you study?" And he asked in a very, inquiry tone, and we had to respond. And one boy very softly said, Swami, we have exams. Said, what will you, so what will you gain? What is the output? Like, he was asking something, what happens after that? So we had no answer. Swami went very softly said, look, all these effort you are putting to reach me, all these effort you are doing so that you can arrive, you can come to me. I have come. So your effort should stop, isn't it? And that has really, given us a thought. And I always get reminded of that conversation with Lord, that look at our irony and affair of our growth, that when we are working towards him and we got him, and we still don't know we got it. I don't know how to interpret this. Why can't we just give up everything? Why can't we just enjoy the bliss of having him and let things happen? Why do we still have to use our head? Why we still cannot get rid of this doership concept? When I read Gita, I realize even Arjun, after seeing the Virat Swarup, he still asks questions. And you're wondering, like, what is the ultimate knowledge, experience one should have, that after which there are no questions left. And here, we don't know when to stop. We were running, destination came, and we still continue to run. And we expect the destination to run with us. And then when we go forward and we realize, hey, destination was already reached, and then we don't know what to do because we are so used to doing things. That feeling of doership is so ingrained in us. I don't know right or wrong, but it doesn't allow us to really experience the Lord. And here is Ayodhya telling us that work towards it. But then with Ram, what happens to Lord, to Ayodhya? See, the whole description of Valmiki Ramayana or any Ramayana you read, we find that the huge description given descriptive about Ramayana is till Ram becomes the king. He's coronated as king. He returns and everything is fine. And then happily ever after. And then comes the last part wherein Sita mother is sent to forest, and that is the story of Lavakush. But in between that phase, nobody has mostly spoken about. There is not much documentation, there is no much discussion about that period with Ram. So when I look at Ayodhya with Ram, I'm not surprised now that why we don't talk about that phase. It is like somebody asking us, hey, tell us something about Swami. I asked my senior brothers, I asked this question when I was younger and I was a new student. I used to ask this to many of my seniors. And as a habit, I asked one senior particular who was with Bhagwan in early 70s. And we were just sitting in darshan. Swami had gone for interview. I casually asked him, brother, tell us something about Swami at that time. And he said, how can I tell you about my honeymoon days? It was a casual conversation. But I realized his sentiments, that what we are talking about with Ram is so sanctified, is so precious, is so blissful that we don't even remember that day. We don't even comprehend. We can't even comprehend that phase. It's so ingrained with us that with Ram is always forgotten. Isn't that a perfect stage of arrival? That we have arrived. And when we arrive, there is nothing to talk. Things are automatically happening. The studies are going on, the work is going on, everything is going on. But nobody is even aware Nobody's ever conscious of this. This with Ram is that blissful state of being with the avatar. That's why the pining creates action. The pining creates happening events. So we talk about it. But the moment we merge with the Lord, strangely and beautifully, there is not much to share. Where in fact, everything to be shared is at that phase of with Ram. But unfortunately, we don't talk about it because nobody knows how to express it. That drop has merged in the ocean, it cannot speak. The river has merged with the ocean, it cannot explain. But till it is going through the plains, fighting its way to reach the ocean, we have got civilizations coming up. We have stories to talk about. But when it comes to ocean, it is silence, it is expansiveness, it is beauty. That is Ayodhya with Ram. Isn't that a beautiful thought which teaches us so much that how we can look at Ayodhya and learn from here? Now let us look at Parthi, our beautiful Puttaparthi of today, which our present manifestation of Avatar, Bhagwan Baba, created. What is this? The journey of Parthi. Now, journey of Parthi also, I would like to break it into three beautiful parts: Gollapalli to Puttaparthi to Prashanti Nilayam. As we all know, as we have explained, discussed before, that Gollapalli was a time when Puttaparthi was flourishing. That place was abundance, with cows, with milk, with prosperity. It was quite some time back. But then something must have happened because a curse cannot just happen on one day, and it turned into Puttaparthi. A Puttaparthi, a place, it deteriorated to such an extent that Puttaparthi lost its existence even in the map of India. There was a time when nobody knew where this Puttaparthi is. It was such a small, insignificant place that it was not even given a position in the map. To reach Puttaparthi even in 70s and 80s, even in my childhood, I remember, it used to take us days. Even if you have to come from Dharmavaram, it would take you almost a day or so. From Bangalore, it was a journey, and that journey was using all types of mode of transportation. We could travel by train, bus, bullock cart, and walk, sometimes swim across the river, take a boat to reach Puttaparthi and stay under trees. It was such a backward place, such a remote place. You can imagine the pining of Puttaparthi, a glorious place of Gollapalli. And now, why I call it Gollapalli, I will share that very soon. The glorious place, and then comes to Puttaparthi. So, in this phase, there is a beauty to look at that how Avatar, depending on the situation, depending on the conditions or the era, if I may say, thankfully chooses a different way of handling it. In Treta Yuga, Ram's physical absence was shown to Ayodhya. But in Kali Yuga, because it is a mess of different proportion, thankfully the avatar chose a different way to handle this. Let me tell you a little bit about Puttaparthi to get an idea about what it what it entailed, the significance of this place, and that would give us a little bit of better understanding about Gollapalli. There is a lot of story behind Gollapalli. I'm sure people must have gone today and seen Pathamandir. Pathamandiram has become an old, it's called Pata is old mandir, and where Swami started the formal mandir and all the system of organization he started in that place. And that place today is used as a place of marriage and a community hall. People use it for different occasions, for sanctified places. But how many of us know that historically speaking, actually, Brother Raju would have given us more details about it, and hopefully, when he comes, I'll request him to share a few more thoughts on that. And it's a place where Lord Narayana did his meditation, and this has been confirmed by Bhagavan to a devotee. It is the same time, if people know the story of uh, Badri Kailash, you know, Badrinath, how Lord Narayan was looking for a place for meditation, and Lord Shiva and Parvati had chosen that place, Badri, to spend there quite time. And Narayan enters that place, and he kind of there is a kind of a small enactment. He comes as a child, and when he enters, and Shiva says, "Okay, now you said we are going," and then he goes to Kedarnath. That is how the mythological story continues, and the Narayan sits there because it's a beautiful, sanctified place by the Lord Shiva. So Narayan meditates there, and then the mother Lakshmi, who is looking for her husband, kind of, she sees her Narayan meditating, and she thinks that when he is meditating for the welfare of the world, I should help. And then she takes the form of Badri tree and covers him, gives him shade. So all the years which Narayan meditated, mother was as a tree, she held on and provided him the shade and comfort of meditation. So when Lord Narayana comes out of meditation, he blesses her and says, in this meditation, you also perform the equal and similar meditation as a penance. So this place will be called as Badri Kedar. So he gives her that importance of the first name. And it seems, they say, in that journey of Lord Narayan meditating in different spots of this beautiful earth land, one spot was the place Puttaparthi, and in that place was the same spot where the Path Mandiram is constructed. So you can imagine Bhagwan choosing a spot to start his mission was sanctified by Lord Narayan himself. It is also said and believed that sage Valmiki, in his time of penance, also came to this land and meditated. So this is another beautiful story, and I'm sure most of you might know, but it is worth to explain so that people, when they visit Puttaparthi next time, they can go and see these places and sanctify their lives. There is another beautiful place called Karnataka Nagarapalli, which is right across the Chitravati river. There is now there's a proper bridge made, and you can always drive down that side. It's a very nearby village. That village was supposed to be Mother Ishwaramma's village, and that is the spot. That village, Karnataka Nagarpalli, is a place where we know the well story, where mother receives the blue light in her womb, and that was the significance of the avatar's birth. That pravesha, which we know, the entrance, when avatar entered the mother, that incident happened in this spot, which is right across the road. Now there is another beautiful story attached to this place. It seems in earlier days, in 40s or something, something happened, and no child, no newborn children, and no small babies were, like, they were all dying very fast. They have not been able to survive. And the elders, they approached Bhagwan. He was a young boy at that time, and they prayed that, they used to call him Miracle Boy in those days, and he said that there is this issue, and none of the small children are surviving. So can you please help? And in a unique style of Bhagwan, he said, "Go, I'm coming." And he went straight to that spot. If you go to Karnataka Nagarpalli today, you will see a school there, and that school is also made by Bhagwan. I believe that could be one of the first schools which Bhagwan has started. So there is a school there, and just across school there is a well. Now I think they have even constructed a proper edifice so people can go and see it. And right in front of the well there is a small room, and that is a spot where Bhagwan asked at that time to dig. And people dug that place. They would have gone around 4 to 5 feet when Bhagwan said stop. And he jumped into the well because somebody was digging it. He heard a clank sound, a hitting sound, as if he has hit some metal. And before he could do anything, Swami said, "Move," and he jumped into that well, that pit, and he pulled out a tamra patra. It's a beautifully, it's like a, it is silver looking sheet. They call it tamra patra. I have seen it. I don't unfortunately have a picture of it. We had gone once, and the villagers were kind enough to show us, and they gave us this full story about it. And Bhagwan created that, brought it out, and he said, "This you must worship." And in those days, he said, "Take it around the village doing bhajans." It's a normal tradition in that part of the country, that in villages especially, it is still very common that they go around singing the name of the Lord throughout the village. So this was carried as a nice they make a palki, all that, and then they carry that. And he said, "Worship that and keep it." And he gave that Tamirapata to an elderly Muslim gentleman, whose family is still maintaining that. They are the caretakers of it, and they have now constructed a small room there in which this plate is still safely kept. And now I believe they take it out only on occasions, on some festivals, and then they go around singing bhajans with this plate. And since that day, from that day onwards, the deaths of the newborn and earlier children stopped. So that is another beautiful story attached to Karnataka Nagapalli, which is right across the river. So people know that when you go next time, do visit this beautiful place. These are all blessed by Bhagwan. These are all places, sanctified by the avatar. There is also a Tulsi Vanam. If you, I know people might know earlier days, Bhagwan, when he was a young child, and he had, they used to call him Guru, and he had quite a few youngsters as his followers in that time also. So it seems from 7, 10 children he took, and he disappeared for a week. If you go on the hill of an administrative block, you cross the administrative block, and now they have made a very beautiful, another wonderful edifice of the archive building. You have to cross that archive building mountain and keep going. After a few kilometers, there is a place, uh, you will find a small little pond. It is actually, I am not sure now. I have been there some 22 decades back, 20 years back, but in that time also there was a small puddle of water, and you can think of it like as if rainwater puddle is there. But when I drank it, it was still sweet. It was really sweet and clean. and just believe that. And the beauty of that is that on the way you will find tulsi trees, as if somebody has planted them. And when I inquired, I was told that it is the spots where Bhagavan has put his feet. Wherever he has walked in that path, the tulsi trees have come up. So they call it Tulsi Vanam, that style. And then there is a Swami made, as a young boy, he made a small brick room. And I couldn't fit in myself, single. So I don't know how he managed with seven boys in that room for 7 days. I have no idea. It seems one boy asked for water, and he used to create food for them. So they would get some dosa, sometimes some fruits. So he would create and give them food, but somebody asked for water, and he threw a stone, and that is where the puddle of water had come out, and that water remains. So I am not sure today, but there was. I have seen it, so I can say that the story. I have tried to verify that, and I love that place. It's very quiet, but quite a walk. I'm not sure what is the status today. So that was called Tulsi Vanam. It's called, and obviously Chitravati. We all know. Bhagwan, in those days, he would tell us Chitravati is a perennial river. It never dries. It will always remain. And we have seen Chitravati in full flurry. We have seen it like a torrential river running. We could not swim properly in that river. It was such powerful flow. And then we have also seen dry Chitravati. And today, by divine will, we are seeing a very beautiful Chitravati river there. So that is also, and it has got a lot of other, inbuilt stories there. Unfortunately, when we were attached to this place, we have seen these things, but never thought of it from a documentation perspective. That today, when we are exploring Ayodhya, we are exploring Puttaparthi, we understand the importance and the significance of Avatar. But when we were part of that system, when we were studying and living there, you don't get that. As I said, when we are with Ram, we are lost in Ram. So probably that is quite be the reason why nobody ever bothers to create a structure or document it in that manner. So that with Ram is a very beautiful thought. That when we are with Sai, then there is nothing, there is no thought, there is no need, there is there's nothing. Life just happens, and whatever happens is the best. And that's why you find the best thing happens when Avatar is, when you invoke his presence. But the feeling of doership disappears. The feeling of knowing that I am the doing, or I am doing, I have to do something, or I have to plan something, all that thing goes off, but only effort remains. And this is exactly the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So can you imagine the whole concept, as somebody rightly said, when you read Avatar, when you study Avatar's life, you're automatically studying scriptures. You're automatically learning Ved. If you explore Avatar, you are exploring Ved. The more you understand Avatar, the more you understand Ved. But unfortunately, if you know Ved, you may probably not get the flavor of Avatar, because Avatar is beyond everything. That is why probably when sage Vyas, in his attitude to serve the humankind, he documented the whole Vedas, classified them, created Upanishads, created Itihasa, created Vedanta, everything he wrote down. Still, he was not satisfied. And then Lord Narad comes to his rescue and he says, you won't find satisfaction and fulfillment by the intellectual work. Write Bhagavatam. And when he jumps into the story of Avatar, that is where sage Bhagwan Vyas finds fulfillment. Because what he was writing was exactly the scriptural knowledge, but the story of Avatar took him to a different realm of devotion, of oneness with the Lord. So that is the beauty of avatar. And this is what we learn from this whole story of Ayodhya and Gollapalli. Now, if I take you through this journey of Gollapalli to Puttaparthi to Prashantinilayam, there is another lesson that I learned from here, and I would like to share that with you all. See, as I said, in Treta Yuga, Bhagavan Ram had to leave Ayodhya and go and kill and destroy the evil and then come back. In that journey, he blessed so many things and things happened. In Kali Yuga, thankfully, the mess is so great that Avatar could not kill, and he chose the tool of transformation. And then what happens? The Puttaparthi phase, which would have ideally been, you know, a very like bad phase in a way, Avatar enters that phase in Puttaparthi. Unlike Rama, who got a land, who got Ayodhya in its right stage, only one problem of pride was there. But in Puttaparthi, imagine the whole prosperity was gone. It was only anthill. And there comes the Lord. And then from there he handholds. And from the barren land, it was a red sand land with no plants, no trees, he creates Prashanti Nilayam. So the journey of the land of Puttaparthi is of great penance. A penance of Gollapalli where Narayana did penance, with Valmiki did penance, with there are so many other stories of Puttaparthi and how they find idols today also to know Hanuman's temple is there. So all these are basic stories to tell the glory of Gollapalli. And then it went into Puttaparthi, which had nothing. And can you imagine the pain? We talk about the pain of Mother Earth. Can you imagine the pain of Parthi? Pain of that land which was so glorified, the blessed with so many beautiful things, and was pining for the Lord to come back again. And the Lord comes and walks. He comes and blesses that land to such an extent that then he converts Puttaparthi to Prashanti Nilayam. And Prashanti, actually the real name today he gave Prashanti Nilayam, the supreme, the abode of supreme peace. How do you get supreme peace? And Bhagavan says the union with God is peace. So when you are talking about supreme peace, it is only possible because of the union with the avatar. So he has taken Puttaparthi and he has crossed the glory of Gollapalli and straight away taken to the heavenly abode of Prashanti Nilayam. And today I feel the place is blessed, whether we accept it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not. Today the whole district is called Sri Satyasai Taluk. It has been given the name. But what name Bhagwan gave, I find it more majestic and more, you know, meaningful from that journey of a human journey from Puttaparthi to Prashanti Nilayam. So that Gollapalli not only regained his glory, but has now culminated in its true essence, the union with the Lord, and that is Prashanti Nilayam. So when I look at the journey of the places, we feel that even the places pine for the Lord. Even the place has to do penance. Even the place has to prepare itself to be worthy of the Lord to come and perform. Can you imagine the patience of the place? For eons, the place has to prepare itself so that one day the Master would come and touch it with his feet. That is the beauty of Puttaparthi. There's so much more that we can talk and share about it. I will give another perspective today to this whole discussion. The story of Avatar, the story of the place, from the perspective of seers and rishis in both eras. And this is also important for us to realize that what it takes to be in the proximity of Avatar. Let me share with you few names of Treta Yuga. Vashisht, Vishwamitra, Rishi Gautam, Yagnivalkya, Ashtavakra, Agastya, Bharatwaj, Sharbanga. There are so many. But let us look at few of them to understand the glory of Lord Ram and what it takes to be in his physical presence. It is a very interesting thing to know that let's take Vashisht and look at his life. Vashisht, sage Vashisht, was Manas Putra, as we say, the mind child of Lord Brahma. So he was born in the beginning of creation. When the whole manifestation started, Brahma started manifestations, multiplication, and in that he created these Saptarishis, pure, sublime, almost an epitome of Brahma himself. So they were nothing short of a god. So Vashishta was one of the Saptarishis. Okay? And he was born in the beginning of the time. So which means we are not even talking about Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, Kali Yuga. He is beyond that. So Vashisht was born. Obviously they are all rishis, they are meditating, they are in supreme pure consciousness. But look at this. Even though he is so pure, he is so supreme, sublime, he is also craving for oneness union with the master who created him. And he is pining for it. And probably in that quest, in his prayer, in his meditative vision, he sees the advent of Lord Ram. And in that advent of Lord Ram, he chooses to prepare himself for the Lord. And what does he do? Let me pause a little bit because I wanted to show you something which you will enjoy. Let me show you first the lineage, which will help us to understand how this whole thing fits in. Okay, I think that will give us a little better perspective to it. I want to share with you how this whole human race has started. And as we say, the lineage of Ram, the Lord Brahma, his son was Marich. One of the Manas Putra was Marichi. He was also a rishi. And this is the and in the place of Marichi, you can say all the Saptarishis and everybody was born at that time. His son was Kashyap Rishi. Kashyap's son was Vivaswan, who became later on, by his penance and grandeur, he attained the status of god of sun. So he became the sun god. Sun god. Now there's a difference. When we say the sun god has come, it doesn't mean that the physical sun has landed. Okay, he is the god of sun. Like we have Bhum Devi, the mother, the goddess of Mother Earth. So it doesn't mean the earth has taken the shape of a lady. It is the goddess of earth. So similarly, Vivaswan was stature of us so high that he was bestowed with the title of the sun god. His son was Vaivasvata Manu. So he was Vaivasvata Manu is supposed to be the first Manu, but there are another little complicated description of various Manus of which era, which thing. So let's not get into that. But from the first series of Manus was Vaivasvata Manu. Vaivasvata Manu, this is the solar dynasty. Now, from Vaivasvata Manu came other rishis who became ultimately the where the Rama was born. Now, Vaivasvata Manu has a combination with Chandravanshi also. So, Vaivasvata Manu's child was Buddha, who was married to a lady called Ila. Ila was Vaivasvata's daughter. So Vaivasvata's Manus, he had many children. One child, one daughter was Ila. She got married to Chandra's daughter, that is Buddha. From where we got Pururuvas, which became the lunar dynasty. So Vaivasvata Manu gave solar dynasty, and Pururas gave the Chandra dynasty, the lunar dynasty. So this is how this both dynasty have come from the same root, if I may say so. He had Manu had many children. One was also called Nimi, and there is a. If you read about it, you will find there are a few other versions which say that you know uh, Nimi was a Nimi had a physical, very short life in physical world, and then there are other kings. But it is at this point of Nimi or his son that Vashishta enters the kingdom. This is the point I was trying to present to all of you. That Vaivasvata Muni, son is Nimi, and Nimi's preceptor is Vashisht. So Vashishta chooses to become the preceptor of the Ikshwaku clan because he knew that Lord Ram is going to be born in this lineage. So now we can get an idea about how what a planning of orientation happens. So there were some rishis who got attached to Janak because they knew that Mother Sita will be born there. There are some rishis who were positioned, as we'll look at other description, we'll realize that they took up positions in different places because they knew that Ram is going to come to forest, he is going to exile. So I will take the role of showing him the direction. Okay, Ram Chitrakoot is there. So Agastya Muni says, Ram Chitrakoot is there, as if Ram did not know where Chitrakoot could be. But that role was played by the Rishi. So this is where I am trying to present to you that Vashishta was a Manasputra of Brahma who became the preceptor or the head priest of this Ikshwaku clan, the solar dynasty clan, with the hope and prayer that one day when Rama would come in his lineage, I would have the pleasure of his proximity. Can we ever imagine the penance this great rishi has done? The patience, the sacrifices he must have made to remain in that position, so that that position which he has held, he guided almost 80 kings before Lord Ram entered. Can you imagine that? What a penance, what a sacrifice, what perseverance all these rishis have shown. Vashisht to become Ram's guru in his physical form, Vashisht to become his guide and guru at that age, he joined the lineage at the very beginning, and he waited for 80 generations so that he could have the blessing of receiving Ram when he was born. He would have the golden opportunity to name Ram, and a most divine blessed opportunity to be the teacher of Ram. What a divine role to play. Vashisht, who is nothing short of God, if he could do such a penance, I don't know where we stand. Look at Vishwamitra, who became Brahmarishi, who had everything. Then he comes to Ayodhya because he also enacted a part. He said, I have certain knowledge skills that I would like to formally hand over to Lord. And he insists, he did emotional manipulations with Dashrath to get access to Ram and Lakshman. He is the one who announces to the public and he says, don't be foolish to see the Ram sitting quietly as young lad. He is the Supreme Lord. I guess in the documented story, he is the first person who makes a public announcement. And that is where the discussion happened, which is captured under Yoga Vashisht or Vashisht Gita or Rama Gita. There are many words, titles given to that discourse. But that discourse was initiated by Vishwamitra. Can you imagine that caliber of a saint taking that small role and he says, come and save? Can you imagine? That Vishwamitra, who had power, who was a Brahmarishi himself by then, who had destroyed anybody, who could have destroyed anybody with his powers. But he follows the protocol and he says, I need Ram because I have to give him something. Can you imagine? And the Lord who says, I don't receive, he also humbly received the gift from Vishwamitra. Not because the Lord wanted those powers of Bala, Bala. There are so many vidyas that he teaches Ram, so to say. But that role of few months, a few days, weeks, months, which he spends with Ram, it is for that purpose Vishwamitra extends his stay. Because he knows the Lord is coming. I need to play that role. Can you imagine the penance of that Rishi? Who comes to Ayodhya and he says, don't be foolish. He is not a small boy sitting quietly. He is the Supreme Lord. Never underestimate him. And he invites Ram to speak, and that is the first time when Ram gives discourse, like our Bhagavan gave discourse at the age of 14 when he throws his books. The prompting for Bhagavan was nobody. He himself chooses to declare. There, Vishwamitra was the conduit who instigates, who prompts Ram and prays that Ram explain to this world, who are you and why are you the way you are? And Ram starts talking. So Vishwamitra was not an ordinary saint, a king who became Rajarishi and then he grows to the status of Brahmarishi, who, by the way, was also attached to Trishanku, another king in the lineage of Rama. So you can imagine where was Vishwamitra, how he came, and how many lives, how many generations Vishwamitra must have waited for this very moment, that when Lord Ram comes of this age, I am going to take him. And I will be the cause, I will become the conduit for the Lord's gift and his marriage. How many rishis must have played around with the karma, did all the penance to be part of that event? That was Vishwamitra. Rishi Gautam, I would say one of the most, touching lives of a saint could be Rishi Gautam and his wife Ahilya. We know the story of Ahilya. how she was left by Gotham, and how Lord Ram comes to rescue her. Now, mind you, Gotham is also Saptarishis. So he knows that this act which has happened is, in a way, blessing in disguise. Because now my wife is going to be blessed by Lord Ram, but she needs to do more penance for it. So do I. And Lord and Rishi Gautam leaves her alone, and she continues her penance and he goes. Their child is Satanand, who becomes the head priest of Janak, Raja Janak. So you look at how these rishis have spread themselves across. And Bhagwan Baba explains it very beautifully. He says it in such in a very, I would not say even coded words. He has literally said it, and we have to understand. He says when Lord Ram enters a depleted hut of Ahilya, he by chance he touches her. It's like by mistake he touches his feet touches her, and she regains her youth. And he says instantly her whole figure changed. She regained her aura, her glory, her beauty, and she's crying. At that very moment, Rishi Gautam, who was in meditation somewhere, probably in Himalayas, we don't know, he also gets to know through his yogic powers that Lord has come, and he manifests right at that time in the ashram. Nobody questions this, that how did Gautam come to know that Ahilya is blessed? He was meditating somewhere else, and Lord Ram enters and he appears right there. And they send word to Satanand, and he also comes. And there Ram again talks to them lovingly. Obviously, it's like an interview with Lord Ram. Those of us who have experienced the interview of Bhagwan can relate to that. Imagine going into a small inner room of Bhagwan with his only family, and he sits down with you and has a conversation. So Gautam, Ahilya has an interview with Bhagwan, and Lord Ram talks to them lovingly. Just for this, imagine how many lives, how many years, eons Gautam and Ahilya have worshipped and pined for the Lord. And Satanand to play the role here, and then he becomes the conduit for Lord Ram's marriage with Mother Sita. He organizes the whole marriage. That is where all these people start flocking together to bless in a way, to find the blessings and to bless the mankind. There are all these stories which really put me into a kind of a blissful state to even think about that how Lord, how Bhagwan works. And here we are craving for Bhagwan's darshan. Here we think we are craving for him. But look at one more story of Sharabhanga. Rishi Sharabhanga, in his Ram's travel, he goes to Rishi Sharabhanga's ashram. He has visited many of these sages who had planted themselves with their ashrams along the path of Rama's, because they knew that Lord Ram would walk this way, so they had their ashrams on the way. So Lord Ram goes from one ashram to another. He goes to Sharabhanga's ashram, who has been praying only for Lord Ram's darshan. So when Lord Ram comes and he says, "What do you want?" He says, "Nothing except your devotion." And Ram blesses him. And then Lord Ram says, "Ask, I will give you anything." Lord, and Sharabhanga, it seems, laughs and says, "Lord, I have got what I wanted. I'll be foolish to ask anything more. I'll be foolish to think of anything else except this moment. I have arrived. My culmination has come. There is nothing else I need. And Sharbanga, with his yoga power, he burns himself down to ashes. That very moment. What a rishi, what a culmination. That when you find what you are wanting, and that's it, there is nothing else to be found. And here we keep claiming, oh, I have God, I know God, I have, and yet we are struggling, yet we are looking, yet we are having our desires multiplied, still we have wants are still going on. Look at Sharabanga. The moment he saw Lord, he was filled with devotion, and he says, done. And Lord is saying, Sharabanga, I'll give you more. Ask. He said, I'll be foolish now, Lord, to even think of anything more. I don't want to live even a second more. In fact, the story says that when Sharabanga had done penance for years, he had arrived at a stage of consciousness, and he once decides to go to heaven. Swargarohan. He wanted to just go to heaven now to further. And that is where he gets an intuitive knowledge that Lord is going to take birth as Ram. And then he stops any of his quests of heaven and anything, and he continued his penance in the hope and prayer that one day the Lord would come. And when the Lord comes, he's filled with devotion, he's filled with bliss. And when the Lord says, I want to give you more, he said, I'll be foolish to ask. And he merges with him, and he burns his body through his yogic powers. That is Sharabhanga. Bharadwaj Rishi, can you imagine? Just to show that Ram, that is Chitrakoot, go and stay there. Can you imagine a status of Bharadwaj, whom we worship as an embodiment of divine? In his own status, in his own right, Bharadwaj Rishi was a great saint. In his own right, Bharadwaj Rishi was absolutely phenomenal. And what does he do? In the plot of Ramayana, his role is only this much, that when Lord comes to me, I am going to tell him, Lord, that is Chitrakoot. You better stay there. I feel humbled. I feel speechless just by thinking about what humility could mean, what humility could be expressed. Can you imagine a Swami organizing a big drama? And we all have been part of activities with Bhagwan. We have seen, even if we write a play, everybody wants a good role, a meaty role where I can show off, where I can show my talent and be close to the main script and main director. Imagine Lord giving you a role and saying, okay, there is already somebody who is selected to play Lakshman, Bharat, Hanuman, and all that. Now I will give you a role to stand as a watchman, a gatekeeper, whose role is only this much, that when Lord Ram enters the court, you have to look at him and bow your head down. That's all. And Lord Ram will walk. Can you imagine that role in which I look at Lord Ram and get lost because I find my fulfillment in that role, and at that very moment my life is done. That was Rishibhanga. That was Agastya. Can you imagine a person of status of Agastya doing the role of a watchman who's just standing and looking at Lord and saying this way, and that's it. His role is done for the avatar. And then he goes back into his meditation, quietness. There is nothing else we find after that. What he did after that, we don't know. Isn't that beautiful? Can we find a better example of humility, of dedication, of devotion than these rishis? What humility! A small role of standing there and saying, Lord, this way, or this cloth you wear, is my role is to bring you that cloth piece, and you say, done. And I find fulfillment and I drop dead right that moment. Because there's nothing else to look for. And here we are, in spite of getting, we still are empty. We still don't know what we got. We're still looking for something. When will our quest, when will our hunger end? I'm speechless, honestly, because the more and more I contemplate on these rishis, I'm, I'm awestruck. That is that the pining for Lord? Is that what is called pining? Is that what is called devotion? Is that what is called surrender, perseverance, humility? That a person waits for years, for generations have passed, and he's waiting that one day the Lord would walk this way. So let me sit here and wait for him. We know Shabari's story very often. She was nobody, and she became great because she waited for Ram all her life. Now we have not acknowledged that all these rishis have waited for how many lives just for that one act with Lord. This is the beauty of Ram. Now when I look at our Sai, the irony of our life is that probably, as Bhagwan also has indicated, his life will be written by Ashwathama, who is another immortal soul who got cursed because of his deeds. But he is going to be the next Vyasa who is going to document our avatar story. Probably at that time, after maybe 1,000 years or so, we would hear the Sai Katha, and then we would know how many rishis were around Bhagwan. Here are some names I have tried to mention, we have tried to capture, and most of them we know them, and they were rishis in their own caliber. Venkatavadhuta, who was a great foreseer, a great saint, a seer, who was in the lineage of Venkatavadhuta, Bhagwan Baba was born. Then let me also share with you here the lineage of Bhagwan. That will give us a better kind of a perspective about our Bhagwan's lineage. It's very small, but it is good to know how, what we know about Bhagwan. So in Swami's lineage, it is Venkatavadhuta, who was actually a couple of generations ahead of Bhagwan. And in his lineage came Kodamba Raju, and his son was Pedavenkamba Raju, and then his son, obviously, as Swami came, as Satyanarayan Raju. This is the tree which can be created. Obviously, Venkatavadhuta and Kodamba Raju was not direct son. It seems they were, maybe he's a grandchild or great grandchild. In his, he had predicted that Avatar is going to take birth. Now imagine his prediction and how many other people got attached to Bhagavan. And that is what is beauty, which we need to look at and understand and enjoy. So now when you look at our Bhagavan's story, we see there are so many people like Kamavdhani Garu, whose story we have shared in many of our episodes. We know very well that he was a master of the Veda. He knew all the four Vedas by heart. In fact, his claim to fame is that he could recite Vedas in the reverse order also. So he once he came to Bhagavan, he came to Puttaparthi on invitation for a certain ritual for Havan, and he was kind of upset that the person presiding over is of a of not of a Brahmin category, because Swami was not born in a Brahmin family. And in his interactions with Bhagavan, he realizes the divinity of the Lord. And at that very moment, Kamavdhanu says, I have arrived. I have got what I was looking for. And then he never goes back. He never goes back to his hometown also. There is a very beautiful story in which Bhagavan takes him to his hometown in his own car, and he goes to his house, and Kamavdhani is sitting in his car. Swami goes into my house. He never goes inside. He's sitting in the car itself. Because he said, I have left and I have left. Nothing exists for me except Bhagavan. Can you imagine the patience, the perseverance, the dedication, the focus of Kamavdhani Garu? And I feel blessed that I had an opportunity of seeing him alive. I have not studied under him. I have not blessed to be that way, but my seniors have, and they have been very kind to share their interactions with Kamavdhani Garu. And I've seen him a very, very, very humble. I've seen him as an old man, so I don't know much about him. But I've seen the glory, the dedication of that person. Can you imagine that? Then we have Gandikota Subramanyam Shastri Garu, another rishi of this era, who was also a rishi, or we can say a caliber, who received Gayatri, Sai Gayatri, and who gave it to us. The Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe is received by Sri Gandikota Subramanyam Shastri Garu. Now, I can't, when I look at these names, I can't, imagine to talk about it, like how much of patience, perseverance they must have to know that Avatar is coming and then leave everything and settle down with him at that time when there was nothing. There was no mode of communication also. And I'm sure I will like to bring in some people who will, talk more on these great souls, probably who have some more interactions with them. So that would be a better to hear about them in a detailed manner. Karunananda Swami, yes, we had few interactions with him. He used to walk around with Bhagwan. He was a saint of his own caliber. He was passionate about social service, for child welfare, women welfare. Amazing personality. I've seen him even swim across the river. Swami used to tell that he has the caliber to swim, against the current of Chitravati at that time in his youth. He was a tall man, but very humble. When he comes to Swami, they won't speak much. Dr. Alrija, let me give you little these two names I have shared with you here for a reason. See, all these people, Venkatavadhuta, Kamavdhani Garu, Kantikota Subramaniam Shastri Garu, Karunananda Swami, all of them were officially a saint. They had the label attached to them. But Dr. Alrija was a physician. He was a personal, if I may say, a personal physician of Bhagwan Baba. He was my doctor too, and when we joined, he did our tests. So we have a very lovely association with Dr. Alreja. Very lovely old man. He was blessed. He had a guru before he came to Bhagwan. He was he was hailing from what is now part of Pakistan. So he came after the migration which happened during the partition. He came with that, and then he had a guru who had told him that your destination is with God and he will call you. And then ultimately when he comes to Bhagwan, he says, yeah, his words have come true and I have arrived. And then he never left Swami. He was also there all his life. And he had a very beautiful, like he had a gift. His gift was that as a doctor, when he is with a patient, the patient won't die. So death won't touch you. He had that gift, the blessing, that when he is present, the patient will not die. And we know a couple of stories, and I know it personally once, that when a person's father, our colleague's father, was on a deathbed, and he would, anytime he goes serious, he'll call Dr. Alrija, and Dr. Alrija would arrive and save him. And then one day Bhagwan had to interfere and say, Dr. Alrija, his time has come. You will not visit him. And Dr. Alrija very lovingly and like a child, he told Swami that, Swami, you have given me the role of a doctor. If I am called, I can't help but go. If he has to go, then it's your duty. Don't call me. So imagine the passion, the clarity of a service. That was his power. Now, a person who has this shafa, as we say in Hindi, one who has this power of, dodge death. Can you say he was anything less than a saint himself? So such Dr. Alreja was around Bhagwan. And I'll give you one story of Dr. Alreja, which is very sweet, and I remember it, and I think I must have shared it before. Uh, According to his astrological chart, he realizes that this is going to be his last year and he may have to leave. So that year he goes with a big tray, and actually we were students, so we were sitting there. He goes with a big tray to Bhagwan, and Swami sees him like, Dr. Alija, you with a tray, birthday tray you have come with, why? He said, Swami, today is my birthday. Swami called him inside, come. So they went inside, and Swami said, Dr. Alija, kya hua? What happened to you? He said, Swami, today is my last birthday. And he's telling that in a very happy manner that I'm done with this life. So he says, Swami, this is my last birthday and I've come to celebrate with you. So just give your blessings. And Swami said, who told you that yours is the last birthday? He said, Swami, that my astrological person whose astrology has never gone wrong. He had told me about coming to you and I came to you. He told me many things. So this also he has predicted, and my line is over and I'm very happy. This is my last birthday. And Swami laughed at him and he said, Dr. Alrija, extension granted. And he signed like that in air, and we know how Bhagwan would do his gesture. And he said, extension granted, Dr. Alrija, go. And Dr. Alrija said, okay, if you want me to live, fine. And he just took his tray and came out. He was laughing. And he said, I got an extension. He was laughing out in the portico and he said, I got an extension. And then he lived for almost a decade or more. So that, why I'm saying this, and Dr. Pedareddy, and Sri Pedareddy is another name. People who know Sai Gita, you must have seen him. He was a caretaker of Sai Gita. Sai Gita had few caretakers, and then when Mr. Pedareddy came, and he remained till the end with Sai Gita. He was an engineer by profession, I believe, very educated, well-educated person. From a worldly perspective, he would have settled in any position he would have found befitting. But when he came to Bhagwan, he wanted to just be with Swami. He has arrived. And when Bhagwan told him, okay, take care of Sai Gita, he was very happy. And we had few conversations with him. He was a very short, small talker. He would not talk much. He would always be smiling. He used to live right across the hostel, so we know Sai Gita's place. So we have seen him. I have never seen him upset, depressed, or angry, or anything like that. He always had a cute smile on his face all the time. And I have not even seen him hitting Sai Gita or controlling her. He had a very unique, loving style of caring for her. And he remained there forever. And that Pedareddy, when we asked him one day, said, you have studied so much. He said, why? What is the point of all that? We all do it for reaching Swami, and now I have found Swami, so I don't have. He said, but sir, do you need some money or something like that? How do you survive? He said, Swami gives everything. What I need, he gives. He gives me every year a pair of two to wear. He has given me food, he has given me a room. What more you want? Now we are hearing these stories today and we look at them as a great soul, but probably when Bhagwan's avataric life would be narrated, then we may know that Pedareddy might have been some rishi, some saint, some god who landed here just to do this role. Can you imagine Dr. Elijah going every month to Bhagwan to check his blood pressure, temperature, and all that? Do you think Bhagwan needed that? But it was a joy that Dr. Elijah had the privilege to do it, so he would go and enjoy that. It is my duty now in this role. I have been given this role to do his medicals, and I will do it. A role given by Lord, and for that role, you continue doing your penance. So we don't know in this Kali Yuga how many saints and seers must be camouflaged in this white dress around Bhagavan. We don't know how many saints must be there quietly following their penance just to be in association with the Lord. That is the power of Avatar. These saints, these seers, offer us a lot to contemplate on. We are looking for examples of humility. If we look for examples of surrender, of perseverance, of penance, of tyaga, look at them. The list is long, trust me. If we really have to put names here, how many of you have heard the name Lopamudra, which is mentioned Agastya? She was the one who gave sari to our Sita. See, we don't know how much penance she must have done for that particular role, that when Lord Mother comes, she'll hand over the sari to her, and that's it. And I'm sure if you look at their lives, their life must be filled with amazing stories of penance, of glory, of grandeur, of everything. But what are they finding fulfillment? In handing over the sari. Somebody says Kasturi Garu, of course. I cannot, think about less of him. Certainly, he was a great soul himself. That's why I said the list is vast, and I'm sure I will try to bring more people who can throw lights on these people more, who can share a little more glory about all these great giants who were available around Avatar, but we, as little monkeys running around, hopping, playing, could not understand the glory and the grandeur of these people. Kasturi Garu, thanks for reminding. Actually, I should have put his name on top again. He's also an amazing personality, and we as a student had a good privilege of interacting with him. So maybe next time I can talk about Kasturi Garu a little bit and give you that glimpse, because these stories are innumerable and these stories are unending. But what I learned from the place Ayodhya, from Parthi, from these rishis, is a great lesson of perseverance, of patience, of devotion, and of fulfillment. How one should be so clear and focused about what do I want, and how do we acknowledge when we got it, and when we get it, how do we stop? That fulfillment, the proof of fulfillment is in culmination, in reaching. But here, after getting also, if we have the quest running in our hearts, that means we don't know what we got. We still have not valued what we already got. And this is the pain which we all carry with ourselves. And probably this is what Bhagavan used to say, ups and jumps. Sometimes you are high with devotion, sometimes you are low. When Bhagavan would give us experience, we would be floating in the air. And when he would pull, we would fall down. We never learned how to stay in that ecstasy. Like Mr. Pedareddy, like Mr. Kasturi, like Dr. Alreja, or all these giants, once they found what they were looking for, they just stopped. Their life culminated. There was nothing more to look for, there was nothing more to aspire for. Yet, everything was given to them. Yet, they got everything what a human aspirations could be for. And that is the beauty of chasing God. So the moment one receives the Lord, he arrives. Yes, Brother Srinivas has mentioned Mother Ishwaramma. As I said to you, brother, oh, you are giving lovely names, and I will try to, I didn't put all the names for a reason because, I wanted some people to join in to share the stories about them from this perspective. Because we know these names, Mrs. Ratanlal, she was another mother to Swami, Mother Ishwarama, obviously a great soul, whose story we have been telling. So we'll try to see if we can add up more people and then get some more exclusive stories about these people, their story of penance, their story of perseverance and devotion to our Master. So today we'll close the session today here. And I would thank all of you for sending your feedback, sending your thoughts to us. Please continue doing that. And we just humbly pray to Bhagwan for give us the strength to bring you, continue to bring you these beautiful stories. Trust me, I learn more than what I am able to share here. It is such a humbling journey for me that the joy of receiving this I am able to share here. So thank you all for encouragement and ever grateful to my beautiful Lord Bhagwan Sri Satyasai Baba. Thank you very much and Sai Ram.